To solve your toughest problems, change the problems you solve. That's a quote by Thomas Wettlesborg, and that one sentence might just be the inspiration you need today. The issue isn't how hard you're trying, it's what problem you're actually trying to solve. Today, we're going to explore how to stop pushing harder and start pulling a different thread entirely. This is Catching Sunshine, episode number 28. Hello, sunny friend. How are you? I hope you're doing great. I'm so glad we get to spend some time together today. I've been practicing what I'm going to share with you today, and it works. Let's get into it. You know those moments when you feel completely stuck? Like you've tried everything and nothing's working, you've had the conversation, you made the list, you read the book, you even tried the tough love approach with yourself, but the problem, still there, still tight, still frustrating. Let me tell you a story that Thomas Wettlesborg, that's his real name, I know, it's a mouthful, but he's got some great information. So he tells this story in his work that perfectly illustrates this whole concept. So picture this. You own an office building and your tenants are furious about the elevator. It's old, it's slow, and people are stuck waiting forever. Some tenants are even threatening to break their leases if you don't fix it. What's the obvious solution? Replace the elevator, install a more powerful motor, upgrade the technology, basically make it faster. But here's what actually happened. Building managers came up with a completely different approach. They installed mirrors next to the elevator. Yeah, mirrors. And it worked beautifully. Why? Because people got so distracted looking at themselves in the mirrors that they stopped noticing how long they were waiting, and the complaints practically disappeared. This is a true story. Isn't that bizarre? So here's the brilliant part. The mirrors didn't solve the stated problem at all. The elevator was still just as old and just as slow, but they solved the real problem, which wasn't actually elevator speed. It was the tenant's frustration with waiting. This is what Wettlesborg means when he says to change the problems you solve. Sometimes the most elegant solution comes from stepping back and asking, what if we're focused on the wrong thing entirely? Imagine a problem you have, like a ball of yarn that your cat got a hold of. So now it's a chaotic swirl of knots and loops. You know that mess, right? Maybe you don't. I'm a cat person. I know that mess. If you focus on the tightest knot, the part that looks the most obvious and frustrating, and just yank at it over and over, what happens? It tightens, it resists, it gets even more knotted up. But when you pause and look at the whole tangled mess from a different angle, when you gently work with a loose piece of yarn on the side, maybe one that doesn't even look important, suddenly the whole thing can start to unravel. This episode isn't just about reframing your situation. It's about realizing you might be working on the wrong problem entirely. And you find the right problem by asking the right questions. So instead of asking, how do I fix this exact thing? We're learning to ask, is this even the right thing to be fixing? Let me give you a workplace example. So say you have a team and they keep missing deadlines. Your first instinct might be to ask, how can I get people to work faster? But what if the better questions are these deadlines realistic to begin with? Do we need to prioritize differently? Are we clear on what actually needs to be done? That shift can change everything because now you're solving the real issue, not just treating symptoms. This shows up everywhere in our personal lives too. Take someone who wants to stop eating late at night. They keep beating themselves up, asking, how can I have more willpower? Why can't I just stop? But maybe that's not the real problem at all. Maybe the better questions are, am I eating enough during the day? Am I actually hungry or am I trying to soothe something else? What feeling am I trying to manage with food right now? Do I need to prep healthier options so they're as easy to grab as the junk food? In my energy work, I see this pattern all the time. Someone comes in thinking they need to work on one specific area, but when we explore what's actually happening, The real tension or imbalance is somewhere completely different. Address the root cause, and what they originally came for often untangles on its own, naturally. Back to our food example, maybe the problem isn't lack of willpower. The problem could be lack of preparation, or exhaustion, or unprocessed emotion, or blood sugar crashes from not eating enough during the day. That's what I mean about finding the right piece of yarn to work with. It's not about fighting harder, it's more about solving the right thing. This also comes up constantly in relationships, and I bet you've experienced this one. So it's easy to think about another person, they're doing this wrong, they're being difficult, I wish they'd change, they really need to. But do they? Or are we trying to solve the wrong problem? Here's a classic scenario. A wife has had a long, stressful day and shares what happened, and her husband, wanting to be helpful, jumps right into fix-it mode, offering advice, solutions, maybe even well, here's what you should do next time. And somehow, this makes everything worse. Why? Because he's solving the wrong problem. He thinks the problem is she needs help fixing this situation. But the real problem might be she needs to feel supported and understood right now, and just someone to hold space for her. She didn't need the situation fixed. She needed to feel heard, maybe even held, maybe just validated that, yes, that was a tough day. The problem wasn't any drama, she described. It was feeling overwhelmed and alone in dealing with it. So all those well-intentioned solutions, they actually made her feel more alone because they missed what she actually needed. I love the quote by Wayne Dyer, "When you change the way you look at the world you look at changes." And this brings me back to another insight from Wendell Wendelsborg. A solution to the wrong problem is worth nothing. Ooh. Okay, so here's another way to think about this. Imagine you're taking a picture with your phone. When you're too close to your subject, everything gets blurry. You can't get it into focus no matter how many times you tap the screen. But when you step back, suddenly it's clear. The same thing happens with our problems. When we're nose to nose with the situation, all we can see is the stress, the urgency, that one tight loop in the knot that's driving us crazy. But zooming out helps us notice what else might be going on. Where's the real tension coming from? What patterns are we missing when we're too close? Sometimes the problem isn't the thing we're staring at. Sometimes it's 3 steps back in the chain of events. Sometimes it's a completely different system altogether. And when you find that right piece of yarn to work with, that's when things begin to shift. Not through force, but through finding the actual point where gentle pressure creates change. So here's the question that can change everything for you. What if I'm solving the wrong problem? Not how can I solve this problem better, but what if this isn't actually the problem that needs solving? And let me walk you through how to use this. Think of one situation that's been frustrating you lately. Something that feels stuck no matter what you try. Got it? Okay. Now ask yourself, what piece of yarn have I been tugging on over and over? What if that's not the main issue? What if I zoom out? What else do I notice? What might be the problem behind the problem? Is there a completely different angle that I haven't considered? Sometimes it's not about doing more, it's just about doing the right thing. Not being stronger, but being smarter. Not pushing harder, but finding the actual pressure point that creates the change you're looking for. So let's get practical how to apply this in different areas of your life. With health, instead of how can I stick to this diet, try what is my body actually telling me it needs? Or what would it look like to work with my natural rhythms instead of against them? With money, instead of how can I budget better, try what am I actually trying to feel or achieve with money? Or What could change if I focused on earning more instead of restricting more? Or other way around. In parenting, instead of how do I get my kid to listen, try what might they be trying to communicate through this behavior? Or what do they actually need from me right now? On Sundays, I get to lead some children in singing, and they're very noisy some weeks. That room gets very noisy. There's not very many of them, but they're enthusiastic. So instead of thinking, how can I get them to be calmer and quieter so they'll listen, I've changed that to what do I need to do with myself so that they will want to hear what I have to say? How can I make things more creative, more fun, more attention-grabbing for them? So sometimes it's just not blaming someone else, but asking, what do I need to do to change my thoughts on this, which will also help the situation change. At work, instead of asking, how can I get more done, try, what actually needs to be done? What would happen if I did less but focused on the right things? So the pattern is the same with all of these. Step back from the obvious problem and ask what might be underneath it. Now, I want to be honest about this. This approach can feel counterintuitive at first, especially when you're stressed or when other people are pressuring you for quick fixes. If you're worried about money, it feels urgent to just cut expenses rather than explore what financial security actually means to you. When someone you love is upset with you, the pressure is to just fix the immediate issue rather than understand what deeper need isn't being met. When your boss is asking why the project is behind schedule, it's tempting to just work faster rather than question whether the timeline was realistic in the first place. So here's another thing I've learned. The quick fix doesn't address the real problem. It usually creates more problems down the road. Like the elevator story. The owner of the building could have spent tens of thousands of dollars replacing the elevator. Instead, he spent a few hundred on mirrors and solved the actual issue. Sometimes slowing down to find the right problem saves you months or years of spinning your wheels on the wrong one. You don't need to push harder. You don't need to control more. You don't need to have more willpower. Sometimes all you need is a different question. What if I'm solving the wrong problem? And then, what are some other ways this problem can be solved? And when you change the problem you're trying to solve, that tight tangle of stuckness begins to loosen, gently and naturally. So to wrap it up, just remember, the solutions you've been searching for might be hiding in plain sight, just waiting for you to work with a different piece of yarn. Thanks for spending this time with me today. If this episode sparked something for you, I'd love you to share it with someone who might need to hear it, or leave a review to help other people find a little sunshine in their week. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is change the question you're asking. Keep catching the shine. I'll see you next time.